Hello, everyone. I hope you've had a great day and good evening. Welcome to the meeting 47 of the Literary Club, organized in association with ELTAI Pune chapter, the Alumni Association of Department of English and CLS, Saurashtra University, and the School of Humanities, MIT-ADT University, Pune. We have an exciting evening ahead of us wherein Dr. Soma Bandopadhyay will be delivering an enlightening talk on the topic, the gender dynamics in Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. Before we start, let me introduce our esteemed speaker. Dr. Soma Bandopadhyay is presently a visiting faculty with St. Mira's College, Pune. Earlier, she had been associated as a faculty with English Language Teaching Institute of Symbiosis from 2004 to 2011. Born on 21st January 1974, she completed her graduation from Lady Brabourne College, Calcutta, and post-graduation from Calcutta University. In 2015, she was awarded with PhD from Savitribai Phule, Pune University. She has presented papers at various conferences and is interested in feminist readings. Some of her published papers are The Story of the First English Novel written in India by an English woman, with Ruth Pravar Jabala, an anti-feminist, a discussion of Jabala's novel Heat and Dust, alienation, an inseparable part of the immigrant experience as seen in Mirror City by Chitra Banerjee, from isolation to self-assertion, the immigrant woman in Manju Kapoor's The Immigrant. Welcome, Dr. Bandopadhyay.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, I call upon Dr. Bandopadhyay to start with the session. We're all looking forward to hearing from you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. Thank you, Sanjana, for this short but motivating introduction. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of my talk today is the gender dynamics in Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. In The God of Small Things, gender dynamics play a central role, highlighting the oppression of women within a rigid social structure and exposing the often overlooked personal and societal struggles women face. The novel interrogates and critiques patriarchy, the source of oppression, particularly in the context of Indian society. Set in Ayman and Kerala, the different threads of the yarn are unraveled through a disjointed narrative style. The incidents of the novel occur between 1969 and 1993. Given the rural setting and the background of Orthodox Syrian Christian family, patriarchy rules large in the lives of these people. The three generations of women in Ayman House are subjected to various kinds of abuse, physical, emotional, and psychological. They are systematically downtrodden and marginalized by the men around them. Arundhati Roy's novel becomes an expose of the history of the struggle on the behalf of the small things against big things. Now, here I want to discuss or explain what are the small things. Small things are the aspirations, fears of the subaltern, namely the women and the lower caste people in the universe of the novel. And the big things are the norms and the laws ascribed by the patriarchal society. Okay, so there is a struggle in this novel between the small things against the big things. A patriarchal society, in simplistic term, means the rule of the father. In this society, older men possess authority to make decisions and rules pertaining to the lives of others. Authority is obtained through experience or knowledge of a specific field or simply from physical strength and intelligence. Depending on the context, this authority then generates privileges. Men in patriarchal society garner special privileges and status. They hold primary power and dominate in the roles of political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, and control of property. By methodically subordinating women, men gain economic, political, social, educational, and practical advantages that are denied to women. Man in such a setup is the subject and the woman becomes the other, and the O is capital. This is one of the central philosophies of the second sex. The role imposed on women by men, known as the other, was ascribed by Beauvoir. The other is always defined in relation to men. One notable example comes from Christianity. Please do not change the slide. Yeah. One notable example comes from Christianity, whose creation myth sees the woman Eve being created from the ribcage of the man, Adam. Man is still the progenitor, the first. The woman is meant to follow him. What Buva saw in the world around her was exactly that. Men are defined by their actions, and women are defined by their relations with/ towards others, particularly men. The question that must be posed in this is this: from where does this perceived superiority rise? The authority bestowed upon men within patriarchy is perpetuated by religious doctrines reinforced by the media, ingrained through societal practices. Religious texts and rituals have long served to entrench these beliefs, with sexism and misogyny deeply woven into the doctrines and the custom of many major religions. God is often depicted as male, and male figures are typically designated as his earthly representatives. Men are thus viewed as possessing greater spiritual authority than women. While many religious institutions prohibit women from attaining full ordination into leadership roles, in certain religious traditions, women are restricted to the back during worship. And in some sanctuaries, they are even barred from entry altogether. These double standards underscore a societal acceptance of women's marginalization, reflecting a deep seated resistance to any critique of these practices. So, opening of volume 2, part 1 of the second sex reads as follows: one is not born, but rather becomes woman. This short, famous phrase encompasses a large portion of Buva's theory in both philosophy and feminism. First is the idea that nature of existence of woman is not destined in any sort of way. Woman, as Buva writes, here is not typical male-female distinction that is given a second, not given a second thought in daily life, but rather a social outline fabricated by men on the basis that women are somehow lacking or inferior. Media plays a significant role in shaping how we perceive the roles of girls and women in society. Unfortunately, media often contributes to the reinforcement of gender inequality. Studies have shown that exposure to stereotypical depiction of gender and clear divisions between genders is linked to a preference for gender appropriate content, toys, and activities, as well as more traditional views of gender roles, careers, and personality traits. This exposure also influences expectations and aspirations for future life paths. In advertising, the film industry, women are often depicted in stereotypical or overly sexualized ways, leading to marginalization and loss of voice. And voice matters because those who speak and are covered in media are perceived to have power or hold important positions. Parenting plays a formative role in the indoctrination of gender roles from infancy. Parents make lasting decisions regarding Yeah. This I have made a few slides. I want to want you to concentrate on the different pictures that are there and what I am saying. Okay. So there are only few slides. There is not going to be too many changes.
All right.
Okay.
All right, madam. Yeah.
All right. Parents make lasting decisions regarding a person's gender identity from the time of birth, dictating the person's name, pronouns, semantics, and activities. Any male child showing an instinctive preference for so-called feminine toys or colors may be chastised and ridiculed. Young girls may be encouraged to act in womanly ways, indicating a submissive and yielding attitude. This indoctrination of societal norms creates an oppressive environment, damaging the self-confidence of women. For instance, parental guidance is shaped by patriarchal beliefs about gender norms, which are usually a large part of patriarchy in practice and perpetuated through households, both consciously and unconsciously. In social life, the repetition of narratives and anecdotes lead to the indoctrination of the philosophy, and subsequent co-modification is extensively evident in women from Indian subcontinent and elsewhere. It is not uncommon for families to be unwilling to send women to college and universities, preferring to save up for their wedding expenses instead. The culture of extravagant weddings with the expectation of bride's family bearing the expenses underscores the pervasiveness of these practices. The oppression is often at a subversive level, woven into the fabric of the culture of the society. Innocuous comments underlie the instinctive disdain for anything feminine, indicating that an achievement worth celebrating can be achieved via a man. This has a deeply traumatic effect on the psyche of women who learn to view themselves as inherently less. Inculcated. Now we come to the story and we see how patriarchy performs all these points that I have just made. Inculcated in patriarchal philosophy, violence against women occurs daily and women are subjected to oppression and humiliation without respite in Aymanan, Kerala. The old house in Aymanan becomes the fulcrum through which patriarchy operates. Mamachi clemently bears the vehemence of Papachi in every aspect of her life. She hurts the pride of the imperial entomologist, and when she turns out to be a talented violinist, all her lessons are abruptly discontinued and the violin is broken. When her when her teacher praises her skill, after he retires from his government job, John Ipe, along with his family, returns from Delhi to Aymanan. There, Mamachi flourishes due to her dexterity and perseverance in making pickles and jams. But Papachi
You are on mute. You are on mute. Yeah.
Did you miss a lot? Mamachi clemently bears the vehemence. Have you heard that?
Just a couple of sentences, I think.
Okay. I'll read one or two sentences before. Mamachi clemently bears the vehemence of Papachi in every aspect of her life. She hurts the pride of the imperial entomologist when she turns out to be a talented violinist. All her lessons are abruptly discontinued and the violin is broken when her teacher praises her skill. After he retires from his government job, John Ipe, along with his family, returns from Delhi to Aymanan. There, Mamachi flourishes due to her dexterity and perseverance in making pickles and jams. But Papachi refuses to help by saying that he didn't consider making pickle a suitable work for high-ranking ex-government official. John Ipe is jealous of his wife's youth and abilities. Unable to control her success, he beats her into subordination. Though the beatings are not new, what was new was the frequency with which they took place now. Papachi's ego comes between the couple, and Mamachi's life is stifled by her husband's jealousy and rigid social norm of her time. It is her son, Chaco, who protects her from these beatings. Chaco finally sets a dot to his father's behavior. One day, he twists his father's hand and advises him not to repeat. Into inverted comma, he comments, I never want this to happen again, he told his father, ever. After this event, Papachi never beat his wife again, but continued to torment her by never talking to her again. Being saved by Chaco, Mamachi packed her wifely luggage and committed it to Chaco's care. From then onwards, he becomes the repository of all her womanly feelings, her man, her only love. Operation now takes a new form. After his homecoming from England, Chaco turns into the owner of Mamachi's pickle factory, talking of my pineapples, my pickles, and declaring the founder herself a silent partner. Chaco's mixed up socialism and capitalist ideas make the factory run into losses. When there is trouble, it is Mamachi who deals with it, yet she is the silent partner. She walks the tightrope between her twin roles of a businesswoman and a submissive housewife without infringing their prescribed limits. As a mother, Mamachi's relationship with her children, Amu and Chaco, is complex and layered. Mamachi's internalized patriarchy is evident in the way she discriminates between her children. She turns a blind eye to Chaco's casual relationships with women, even building a separate entrance to the house for him to bring his female guests discreetly. However, when Amu, her daughter, falls in love with Veluta, a man from the lower caste, a paravan, Mamachi is horrified. Her reaction is harsh and unforgiving, ultimately leading to Amu's banishment from the Aymanan house. Her favoritism towards Chaco, her son, is evident, reflective of the gender biases embedded in her worldview. Now she becomes from the victim to the perpetrator of patriarchy. Mama Ching also harbors resentment towards Margaret, Chaco's ex-wife. She resents Margaret for leaving Chaco, but admits that she would have hated her even more had she stayed. Mamachi's inability to see other women happy underscores her internal struggles and jealousy. Arundhati Roy highlights through Mamachi's character that patriarchy is not solely perpetuated by men. Women too can be complicit in upholding its oppressive structures. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. Like Mamachi, baby Kuchamma proves to be a hapless victim of patriarchy and later becomes a perpetrator. In her younger days, she had fallen in love with Father Mulligan, the Irish monk, who was more than merely flattered by the emotion he aroused in the attractive young girl who stood before him with trembling, kissable mouth and blazing coal black eyes. Baby Kuchamma involves herself in an elaborate ruse of being interested in scriptures to impress and seduce the priest. She forcibly bathes a poor village child with hard soap just to stop Mulligan on the pretext of understanding a passage from the Bible. When it is time for Father Mulligan to return to Madras for a year, baby Kuchamma decides to convert to Roman Catholicism so that she can remain in touch with him. Thus, her actions are influenced by passion that have nothing to do with religion. Eventually, she decides to leave Roman Catholicism when she realizes that it will be impossible for her to be near Father Mulligan. She also refuses to reconvert to Syrian Christianity. Now, this romantic disappointment defines her later years, fueling her bitterness and frustration. Her inability to fulfill her desires lead her to suppress her emotions, and this repression manifests in toxic behavior as she grows older. Rather than finding peace, she channels her unhappiness into controlling others, especially Amu and her children, Estha and Rahel. In her later years, baby Kuchamma's desire for power becomes increasingly evident. She manipulates situations to her advantage, often using lies and deceit. Her ability to maneuver events to protect herself and maintain her social position reveals her moral ambiguity. She falsely accuses Veluta of abducting the children to cover up the affair and deflects the attention from what the traditional society would consider to be the destruction of the family's reputation. You know, Amu had an affair with the paravan, and if that came out in the open that Amu had willfully participated in this affair, it would be loss of reputation from the traditional point of view. And therefore, baby Kuchamma couldn't stand it. She tells a lot of lies and ultimately has Veluta killed off. Aunt Baby Kuchamma's history converts her into the epitome of annihilator of feminine pride or womanly worth. Her unfortunate past controls her miserable present. She wields the fatal weapon of patriarchal society and is willing to kill the slightest sense of women's empowerment. The most powerful aspect of baby Kuchamma's role in enforcing patriarchy is her internalized misogyny. She has absorbed the patriarchal values that oppressed her, but instead of rejecting them, she adopts them as her worldview. This internalized misogyny causes her to view other women, especially those who defy convention, as threats or outcasts. She believes in punishing transgression, particularly those related to women's sexuality, which patriarchy often polices most harshly. Baby Kuchamma reinforces traditional gender roles and the idea of proper female behavior, particularly when it comes to Amu, her niece. She constantly criticizes Amu for her independence and rebellious nature, especially for her defiance of societal norms concerning marriage and sexuality. She hates Amu because she saw, into inverted comma, I quote from the novel, because she saw her quarreling with fate that she, baby Kuchamma, felt had graciously accepted the fate of the wretched, manless woman. Instead of supporting Amu's struggle against these oppressive standards, baby Kuchamma judges her harshly, contributing to her isolation and social condemnation. Her disdain for Amu's affair with Velutha is not just rooted in the caste, but also in Amu's defiance of prescribed gender roles. Baby Kuchamma believes that a woman should adhere to patriarchal expectations, marry within her caste, obey social rules, and suppress desires. By condemning Amu's actions, she perpetuates the idea that women who deviate from these norms deserve to be punished. Ultimately, baby Kuchamma's hatred seals the fate of her niece by destroying her lover and forcing her into self-destruction and death. Perhaps the most damning aspect of Baby Kuchamma's role is her active manipulation of the police to incriminate Velutha. After the children run away and are found with Velutha, Baby Kuchamma seizes the opportunity to frame him for kidnapping and assault. She tells the police that Velutha is responsible for abducting the children, knowing full well that this is a lie. Framing Velutha as a criminal, Baby Kuchamma sets into motion a chain of events that leads to his arrest and brutal beating by the police. In doing so, she deliberately uses a position of privilege and authority to ensure Velutha, a powerless Dalit man, bears the full weight of the legal and caste-based oppression that society can exert. Okay. Can you change the slide, please? Yes, thank you. Unlike Baby Kuchamma, Amu, the protagonist of the novel, suffers intolerably because of all pervasive patriarchy, yet struggles against it. Amu is a symbol of courage, love, loss, and above all, a symbol of resistance. The tragedy of her life starts at childhood. She is deprived of the love and care because of her gender and is beaten mercilessly by her father with iron-topped riding crop, who pretends to be a philanthropic to the world outside. Born in a society where the birth of a girl child is unwelcomed and considered a burden on the family, her brother Chaco is privileged in every aspect of family life, purely because he is a male. After schooling, Amu is denied further education, while her brother is sent to Oxford for higher education, because Papaji insisted that college education was unnecessary expense for a girl. So Amu is left with no choice but to leave Delhi and move with them to Ayman. Thus, her own family becomes an obstacle between her freedom and future progress. In the second sense, Buva's second idea is that of becoming. The idea that one creates the meaning of one's existence through free action and free will. However, when those freedoms are limited, as is in the case of Amu, the things that one can become are so limited. Meaning what you can achieve is also so limited. In Buva's own words, the destiny that society traditionally offers women is marriage. This is not just true to Buva's era. Marriage or the lack thereof is the basis of lot of frustration in single women and ire for their families even in this age. When Amu's family relocates from Delhi to Aymanan, her life becomes filled with monotony, isolation, and anticipation of marriage proposal. She feels trapped in her Aymanan home, longing to discover her own identity. There was little for a young girl to do in Aymanan, other than wait for marriage proposal while helping her mother with housework. All day she dreamt of escaping from Imenon and the grip of her ill-tempered father and bitter, long-suffering mother. Her father eventually allows her to spend the summer with a distant aunt in Calcutta. During a wedding reception there, she meets her future husband and marries him impulsively, believing it will free her from her strained relationship with her parents. However, her hopes are dashed, and when her husband turns out to be more than just a heavy drinker but a full blown alcoholic. Simone de Beauvoir observes that for women, securing a husband or a protector is often seen as the most significant task in their life. It provides an escape from parental home and opens a future not by active pursuit, but by submitting passively to new authority. However, Amo refuses to defer to the decree of her husband. When Abu moves to Assam with her husband, she becomes a figure of attention at the Planters Club. She adopts a modern style, wearing blackless blouses with saris, carrying silver purse, and smoking long cigarettes in silver holders, all of which symbolizes her defiance against the patriarchal norm of Indian society. As a modern woman, Amu refuses to be dominated by male authority. Though she initially tries to escape her stifling family life through marriage, her husband's betrayal. And what did he do? Offering her to be his English boss for professional gains led her to reject his authority. Rather than submitting, she divorces him to preserve her self-respect and identity. Unlike her mother, Amu refuses to tolerate her husband's abusive behavior, choosing divorce over enduring a dysfunctional marriage, thereby defying societal expectations in India. Upon returning to Imenon, Amu finds herself unwelcome, facing the same environment she fled years before, but now with two young children and no dreams left. She is often reminded by baby Kuchamma that she is a divorced daughter in a parental home, and according to traditional mentality, and I quote from the novel, a married daughter had no position in her parents' home. As for a divorced daughter, she had no position anywhere at all. And for a divorced daughter from a love marriage, well, words could not describe baby Kuchamma's outrage. As for divorced daughter from an inter-community love marriage, baby Kuchamma chose to remain quiveringly silent on the subject. Though Amu and Chaco share the same burden of work in the factory, after she returns, she is deprived of any rights over the property and the factory. Chaco very callously declares, what is yours is mine, and what is mine is also mine. Yet Amu is a rebel. She is, in fact, the new woman who tries to strongly protest against the patriarchal system prevalent in her hometown. She refuses to carry the surname of her husband, and so Rahel and Esther do not have surnames in the novel. She feels that choosing between her husband's name and her father's name does not give a woman much of a choice. Marriage for Amu is a devastating experience, causing her both physical and psychological suffering. However, she challenges societal norms and the institution of marriage, which, according to Michel Foucault, operates as a disciplinary institution designed to silence and control those who deviate from conformity. As a woman who resists an oppressive marriage, Amu becomes an outcast within her own family, highlighting the marginalized status of divorced women in society. Amu's rebellious spirit makes her discontented with the traditional roles of motherhood and her life after divorce. She's acutely aware of her physical beauty and the inevitable passage of youth, often spending time gazing at her reflection and worrying about aging. She rebels through small acts like swimming at midnight, smoking cigarettes, spending long hours on the riverbank listening to the transistor radio. When Velutha enters her life, Amu chooses to love by night the man her children loved by day. Their love is not just a matter of physical attraction, but one built on mutual respect. For nearly 2 weeks, their secret affair continues until Velutha's father reveals it to Mamachi. Through this, their relationship, the God of small things brings to light the meeting of two kindred rebels. Her love for Velutha crosses strict caste boundaries, shattering what it was proudly pronounced as the love laws. Through this forbidden relationship, Amu asserts her right to love and personal choice, even if it means facing intense societal judgment and punishment. Amu's rebellion also stems from her struggle to gain autonomy in a male dominated society, where her worth is largely defined by her marital status and her obedience to her family members. Their mutual love affair is soon exposed by Velutha's father, who complains to Mamaji about his son's deed. Baby Kuchamma takes this opportunity to settle scores with Velutha. She goes to the police station and files a complaint. Even Mamaji abuses Velutha. Mamaji, who had turned a blind eye to Chako's flirtation with lower class women under the guise of man's need, now condemns Amu Velutha affair as immoral and sinful. The relationship between Velutha and Amu triggers a deep sense of hatred in Mamachi and baby Kuchamma. Velutha is implicated in a false case of attempted rape, kidnap, and murder of Sophie Mall. The death of Sophie Mall, the dearest daughter of Chaco, wreaks havoc in Amu's life. Chaco orders her to pack her things and leave, which Amu has to obey. The consequence of this order is the separation of the mother from her children. She decides to become a teacher, the only respectable job for a woman in Indian society. The story of her subordination continues through her work as a receptionist in a dingy hotel, which results in her death at the age of 31. And a very quotable phrase from the novel, a viable, diable age. The politics of power runs even after her death, as the church refuses to bury her body because of her relation with Velutha. Amu's body is cremated, and later a letter is sent to Estha informing of the same. Amu and Velutha's choices have a lasting impact on Amu's children, the fraternal twins. Please change the slide. After Velutha's passing, Esther is sent back to live with his father while Rahel remains with her uncle Chaco and grandmother Mamachi. They see to her physical needs, but withhold any genuine warmth or affection because she is Amu's daughter. This leads Rahel to grow up without guidance or anyone to arrange her marriage. This neglect grants her the sense of independence from societal expectation, enabling her to make her own choices without constraint of traditional family or cultural obligations. Rahel's detachment from her roots and lack of economic or familial support forces her to rely on herself, shaping her independence and freedom from patriarchal norms. She moves through her life and relationships on her own terms, eventually marrying an American, Larry McCaslin, who finds the vacant look in her eyes disturbing. Their union later ends in divorce. But it, however, does not affect Rahel that much. Her only meaningful bond remains with her twin brother, Esther, with whom she shares a profound and inseparable connection. The narrator captures this unity, noting how the twins seem to complement each other like stacked spoon or familiar lover bodies. I quote from the novel. They perceive themselves as me and separately, individually as we or us, giving them a shared yet distinct identity. This unremarkable bond, sorry, not unremarkable, this unbreakable bond renders them in essence one, possessing what the narrator describes as single Siamese soul. Throughout her life, Rahel resists the norms expected of Indian girls. She moves from school to school, transitioning into detached adulthood. Her behavior, which defies societal conventions, results in multiple expulsions, as it is viewed as a quiet and solitary act of rebellion. In college, her disinterest in social acceptance and her fierce independence isolates her, particularly from male students who find her lack of ambition unsettling. Rahel's unconventional path through her life reflects her disinterest in fitting into prescribed roles, whether social or romantic or as she drifts through life shaped by her own choices. When Rahel learns of Esther's return to their childhood home in Aymenon, she too returns, mirroring her mother's Amu's journey after her marriage. However, she finds an environment devoid of warmth or recognition, even from her twin. Their lives have a size and shape now. Esther has his, Rahel has hers. They are as old as Amu when she died, 31. Not old, not young, but a viable diable age. It is Rahel who breaks the silence and the distance between them, shaped by time and trauma of their past. She understands the profound impact of the history on their lives and the shared suffering they endured as children. Their history includes the brutal memory of Belutha's death at the hand of the police, a man they and their mother loved but were forbidden from loving. The horrific event staged as a grim performance of history masquerading as God's purpose. And this is a quotation from the novel because that is what the traditional society said, that if the paravan died a brutal, horrific death, it is because of the sin that he had committed. So they said that it was history masquerading as God's purpose, haunts them both, leaving deep emotional scars. In the darkness, Rahil speaks Esther's name, a gesture that reaches beyond words and restores part of their identity. It symbolizes defiance against societal prohibition, including the restriction around love. In this moment, Rahil's presence and acknowledgement allow them to confront the weight of their experiences and trauma of their separation. Esther touches Rahil's mouth as she says his name, noticing how closely it resembles their mother's. Gently, Rahil takes Esther's hand, kisses it, and then, just as Amu had with Velutha, she draws him close. Their physical closeness is more than comfort for their shared pain. It is crossing our boundaries, challenging the laws that define acceptable expression of love. This act is Roy's way of questioning the validity of social restrictions that condemn any love outside traditional laws or norms, emphasizing that love defies rigid classification. The connection between Rahil and Esther defies societal expectation of what people ought to do and yet possesses a profound ability to heal. So the society tells you not to have an incestuous relationship, but it has a purpose, it has a way to heal. And therefore, Arundhati Roy brings that about in in the universe of her novel. There were tears. What they shared that night was not happiness, but hideous grief. And this is a quotation from the novel. Through Amu and Rahel, Roy symbolizes hope for a progressive India ready to move beyond outdated restrictions on who can love and how deeply. Their resilience and modern outlook cannot be constrained by tradition, family expectation, history, state authority, or even mortality. For Roy, tomorrow, that is the last word in the novel, does not arise from superficial liberalism, but from those daring souls with the courage to confront injustice and inequality. This progress, driven by rage against oppressive norms and the courage to stand at the margins of the society, becomes achievable with the potent support of literature and its ability to inspire change. Rather than merely critiquing established laws, Arundhati Roy champions a future where the remnants of gender and caste prejudices are discarded, allowing humanity to realize its full potential. Ultimately, Arundhati Roy creates not history, but her story, HERSTORE, her story, through the female rebellion in her novel. Thank you. So this was my take on the gender dynamics in Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things. If there are any questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an insightful session. And if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat box. Ma'am will answer them now.
Yes, the first question is from.
So somebody had raised their hand. So you can unmute yourself and ask the question. That's also totally fine. We are getting a lot of reactions. Everyone loved the talk. I also loved it personally. I think people are still digesting everything and they'll be putting their questions really soon.
Thank you so much for your appreciation and all the claps that I am receiving.
I have a question, ma'am. So
Yes.
the story, I haven't read it yet, but from what I could gather, the end is a little bit kind of a bitter-sweet end or a little bit tragic end. So would you
Yes.
think that this her story is a hopeful one, or I mean, usually, how would you see this particular kind of ending?
Yes, it is a very sad ending. Velutha is killed, and Amu also dies of some disease. And she dies of tuberculosis. And the children have been separated throughout their lives. They have suffered. In spite of that, the struggle that Rahil and Amu they pose, the kind of fight that they pose against patriarchy, what does it show? It gives us hope that yes, if it is possible to bring about a change if we really try. And though their lives have ended sadly, but there is always hope that if there are number of rebellions like this, one day there will be some changes happening to the way the society thinks. I think that is possible. One feels very inspired to see that Amu has put in such a strong fight against all the odds that she is facing. First, very violent father, then a very conservative household, then the husband turns out to be an alcoholic. But in spite of that, she doesn't give up hope. She knows her own worth. She knows, she believes herself to be a woman of substance. You know, a woman has a life of her own apart from motherhood and being obedient to the laws that are laid down by the family and the society at large. The way she fights, it gives us hope that we will be able to, if we carry on this fight, someday there will be change in the way the society thinks. Yes, Parth, please answer.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, and compliments on being able to cover the topic so well. Um, I know it's a Herculean task to speak on the God of small things,
Mm,
but congratulations to you, ma'am.
thank you.
I was, I was, I was impressed by your introduction of Ammu. You know, you said that she is a symbol of love, hope, and other
Resistance.
things.
Mm.
And lastly, you use the word resistance. You know, and I think she's a symbol of resistance in all the ways, uh, in terms of literature as well as in terms of theory. Here is one character whom we can view with the so-called lens of feminism, but ultimately this character escapes any particular theoretical lens. Don't you think so? Arundhati Roy basically um molds this character in such a way that it fits into the frame of feminism, and at the same time escapes the frame of feminism towards the end.
So then, does she really become submissive?
Not subversive exactly, but
No,
then
submissive. Does she submit to
not
the patriarchal
submissive.
laws? Yeah, then
But she resists uh, the the conventional framework of feminism, I feel.
actually, there is, because we are talking about Indian feminism, there is something called a Western feminism and an Indian feminism. The
Right.
both of them have the similar meaning. Both these groups they have similar kind of thought process, but also the Western feminists seem to throw out the baby with the bath water, meaning they go to the extremes. You know, they think that
That's right.
family is the institution through which the all the operations operate in the lives of women. Whereas Indian feminists and Indian women, as such, what do? They think they work within a compromise maybe, and but at the same time not giving up their identity and their aspirations. Okay, so Arundhati Roy herself is that kind of an, yes. Arundhati,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
wanted to
Yes.
say something?
Please.
Arundhati Roy herself is that kind of rebellious, what do you call, a journalist and a social worker. She does not fear to take up a stance, and so also Amu is almost molded in her own mold, in the mold of a creator, and she stands her ground in spite of so many odds that she has to face, so many problems that she faces. Every time she strives to assert herself, there is some kind of blockage, and this is something that all of us, all women here present here also would have experienced. What we see through the novel is that, at least when I'm teaching my students, it opens their eyes to things that are very much culturally accepted. Okay, so that women are not sent to colleges where the fees are very high because we have to save for your wedding expenses. These are something that Indian girls are habituated to hear in their houses, and then they somehow come to accept, because reiteration of these ideas, it really becomes a rule to them. They think that that is the ultimate truth. Ultimately, when this, after reading this novel, when my students go through this, their eyes open and they understand that this is meaning getting married. It's maybe your parents think that it is the best thing for you to happen, but it need not be so. You can live a life without marriage. So the money that they are saving for your wedding expenses could be employed, better employed rather, in your higher education. If you want to go abroad to study or to get a degree or something, it could be employed, and it would be well employed, I would say. So these, after reading Amu's rebellion and Rahil's way, the way she walks through life, moves through life, we really, it opens the eyes of many of the young girls who are not really aware of how patriarchy works, how the rules and norms of patriarchy are so woven into the fabric of our culture that it is not always visible, clearly visible. So through the reading of these novels, definitely their eyes are open, and we have hope for this bright future where all women will be able to achieve what they aspire to achieve.
That's right. Thank you, ma'am. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So, such a wonderful character. I particularly like the weaving of the character of Amu,
Yes,
and
definitely.
she's a resistance. She's a symbol of resistance to theory with a T capital. Sometimes I find.
Really.
Thank you so much,
And
ma'am.
it takes a lot of
And
courage to
thank you for
stand
bringing in
against.
that aspect of Indian theory of feminism.
Yes. Anybody wants to talk about, if you have read the novel, you would know about Papachi's moth and all. If you want to talk about that, that too is okay. Yes, Varsha.
Yeah, Shoma, I just want to know your take on, Arundhati Roy bringing in an incestuous relationship between, Estha and Rahel. What do you think? Was it a act? What was that act? A rebellion or something more to it? Or
It is not a rebellion. The kind of torture and torment these little children had undergone when they are twins, and so they are inseparable. They think each other's thought, they complete each other's sentences, and they are so close together, and forcefully separating them because their mother had an affair with a paravan, which is not acceptable. She's not even married, so she's a free woman. If she had an affair with somebody, what has the society to say about that? It was out of mutual love and respect that they involved themselves in that affair. So, and because society feels that their mother has committed something terrible, therefore these children had to be separated. The torment, the torture, the trauma they undergo is unbelievable. When we read, actually, I've been reading this novel so many times. Every year I keep reading it. So the number of time I read, the better I understand and the more I feel the pain that they suffer. So in the end, if they because Esther doesn't speak. Towards the end, the amount he has suffered makes him a silent character. So there is no way in which Rahel can reach out to him. So ultimately, she just hugs him, and then they become close and all, and that is all. That is the only way that she can really communicate with him at that moment, because he has stopped talking completely for some few years. He has just stopped talking completely. He does his own task. He washes his own clothes. He cleans his own room. He doesn't ask for help from anybody, and he is returned and re-returned. Meaning, first time he is returned when his mother leaves the Aymanan house. Then he is re-returned when his father decides to, his not ex-father, of course, his father decides to shift to Australia. And then he is treated like an Amazon parcel. So he is sent back, re-returned. That is the word Arundhati Roy uses for him. And somebody, if I really feel sorry for him if he is treated like a parcel, Amazon parcel, which means return and re-return. It is like that. And if he has suffered this kind of trauma, I cannot find any reason to fault his silence, because he's fed up with the society. He's completely disillusioned with the society at large, and he doesn't want to communicate with them. And in such a situation, Rahel does not have anybody. Nobody loves them. The mother is dead. Baby Kuchama is that she's just not acceptable kind of a character. So who is she to communicate? And Esther is not speaking. So what else can she do? That is the physical contact or physical communication is the only way out. So we cannot really say that is a sin or something, at least in the context of this novel. Yes, somebody else had given a comment.
Thank you so much, Soma. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody wrote fine. A question forwarded.
Yeah. Fatsar has forwarded a comment or like a comment from Dr. Madge. He could not attend due to some.
Yeah, this is a question from Dr. Marty.
Would you like to read it loud?
Sanjana can read it. Sanjana, can you read the question?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Soma, this is more a comment on Arundhati Roy than on your presentation, which, as ill luck would have it, I couldn't attend due to my familial obligations. The novelist, I believe, talks only of two genders, male and female, in his solitary magnum opus. Recently, psychology has uncovered some 70 genders in the world. Roy, as an earnest civil vigilante, should acquaint herself with the remaining 68 categories to presume weaving narratives of humankind.
I think we should pass this on to Arundhati Roy. She might take notice of it. Has anybody read The Ministry of the Utmost Happiness? This is her second novel, which she published 20 years after the debut novel, The God of Small Things. There is in the universe of that novel, there is a transgender woman, and the life of the transgenders, the problems they face and all, those are also dealt with. So it's not that she has just done or she is fighting for the male and female only. There are other things also she's writing about.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Sinha sir had also a few queries. So I think we can now call on him.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Dr. Soma Bandopadhyay, I must say it was a very, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Lively, articulate, lucid presentation, never dull moment. Absolutely riveting, that I must say. Now I have got a few queries and you are welcome to answer them or not. See, I'm supposed to some things up at the end, so maybe it's a wrong time to ask questions, but since I do have a few queries. First is, shall I read them all out? There are five.
So first one, let me hear that.
Okay.
If I'm able to answer you.
Does the situation change with each generation, or does it remain the same? Is the male-female equation rooted in socio-economic condition, or is it a universal constant?
It is an universal concept. It is not just because somebody is poor that they are oppressing the women.
Yeah.
It is not true. I think, at least the examples that I see all around me, I
Yeah.
feel that it is a universal problem.
Obviously, an anti-Marxist position or un-Marxist position that doesn't historicize things. I'll agree with you, but I just thought since many strands of Marxism are in fashion, I should mention them and mention their point of view. And as you further know, the novel was hailed as an anti-Nambudri Path novel, wasn't it? As an anti.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Kerala is known to be a land of literacy, 100% literacy, and
Yeah.
Marxists have been in government. And what is Marxism? The central philosophy of Marxism is equality for all and all, and they are the messiahs of the poor. But
Yeah.
when Velutha goes to Comrade K.N.M. Pillai for help, he finds out that Comrade is only interested in his personal development or growth in the Marxist government rather than helping the poor. So it is the Arundhati Roy really shows the bogusness or the sham that Marxism in Kerala is really. So she really brings that out.
Shall I fire my second question? It's not firing, I'm just raising. The position initially was that man became dominant because he was a breadwinner in the family. Now, in this family, as you observe, Mamachi is the breadwinner for a long,
Yes.
long time.
Yes.
And still, she's oppressed.
Yes.
Any comments on that?
What has really happened is Papaji has been brought up, inculcated in that patriarchal philosophy that I had been talking about in the first 2 pages of my talk. It is that I told you about religion and media and all that. He has been brought up in that, brought up or taught, inculcated with that philosophy of patriarchy, that the man is the stronger person. He knows more. He is more intelligent. Therefore, he has the right to give rules and rule over people. Okay, so when Mamaji becomes the breadwinner, he feels that he is an ex-government official. He had been some great government official, and therefore retirement is a part and parcel of man's existence. Someday everybody has to retire. That doesn't diminish his importance in his society. He still remains the patriarch of the society. So whether Mamaji earns or doesn't earn, it doesn't matter. She has to be subordinated to him, and it is because of the kind of background in which he has been brought up, the kind of media, the religion, and the social acceptance that he has always heard, social philosophies and advices that he has always heard. He cannot give up those learnings of his whole lifetime just because Mamaji has started earning more than him.
Okay. You have partially answered my third and fourth questions. One was about the anti-CPM angle. The other was about caste consideration. But that's the point you might like to develop for a couple of minutes. The gender discrimination and caste relationship. Because after all, Kerala has a matriarchal strand in the Nayars, isn't that so? So
It is, I have heard so, sir, but the novel, the way meaning I was just dealing with the universe of this novel. And in this novel, whether they hail from Kerala, where matriarchs rule, and all, it just does not apply. So I just kept myself limited to the universe of this novel. But I need to read a little more about being a matriarchal society, how this is happening in Kerala.
okay. But maybe it's not true of all Kerala.
Maybe.
And finally, my last question, which I guess is addressed to many people here, not only to you. You talked about Western feminism and Indian feminism. Can we club them together? After all, there are so many groups among the Western feminists and so many groups among the Indian feminists. After all, the eco-feminists are not the same as socialist feminists. So there are multiple strands in Western feminism as also in Indian feminism. So should we be aware of the diversification there?
Sir, I cannot answer this question. I have to make better. I have to do some more reading on this.
And this is meant for everyone. I mean, not only you, for I suggest most of the feminists should think about this issue. And I think they do consider the matter from diverse feminist angles. See, there is not one feminism, there are multiple feminisms.
Mm.
But I repeat, you did a brilliant job. I was really impressed with the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Very lively.
I have to thank you and the Literary Club for giving me this opportunity to speak about Arundhati Roy. And as Pat said, that this is a humongous task. And putting all the points together into this 7 pages was difficult. But somehow, having been appreciated by you, I'm feeling really good. And I'll have a good night's sleep. Thank you.
Dr. Shoma, we are sure your 40 minutes talk will serve as a pretty good introduction for our UG and PG level students who want to get fairly acquainted with the novel. So that's one big task that you have served for them. This is being streamed live on YouTube. So, the teachers here can request their own students also to go back to the video and, have a watch when they do it in the class.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Shoma, very much. Really wonderful. It is a very complex novel, not easy really to, contain it like you did, but you did a wonderful job. It is a complex novel, very difficult there's so many layers there and the characters are complex, but great job. Thank you so much.
Close.
All right, everyone. Thank you, Professor Sinha and Dr. Bandhapadhyay. It was so kind of you to address all of us. We wish to see you and hear from you again in the near future. I also would like to thank all the participants for their patience and their attentive listenings. Special thanks to the organizing committee for organizing this session and constantly supporting us. And before we all leave, I request all the participants to fill out the feedback form that you can find in the chat box. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. See you
Thank
next
you.
session.
See.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.